Dropping in with some tokens of truth. Understand that everything is, yes, they say a movie, but also is a movie that you should be watching. You shouldn't turn down, you should turn up and really start to dial in resonance. Wizard of Oz is real. And the good news, now I don't have my red slippers on today, but the original republic still exists. And we are in the enactment of restoring them, regaining our rights, and aligning with principle. That goes back to resonance, truth. And the military right now is serving as our protector of these republics, ensuring that we have the stability that they are so graciously doing. I am amazed. So let's lock in, stay to the end. You are going to be so empowered. So I'm going to break down the corporation, how we are operating maritime, and we're agreeing to it. We've signed over our deeds to these individuals. We've signed over our children. And when we signed our marriage certificate, I'm not married, you may be, you agreed to give the state all the property, including your children. So we are in big trouble. And like I said, there's good news. The original republic is still here, and the name of the game is to take back our inheritance and allow it to fall in alignment because we are the beneficiaries of the trust. Now, when I say we're in big trouble, what I mean is that this is a war on your mind. And if you turn off this audio right now, you're going to actually continue to give your mind over to deception and lies. Lincoln knew what he was doing. He was incredibly intelligent, not perfect, but intelligent. And he really saw that writing on the wall. So what does he do? He created another trust. We're going to get into this. He put 35 states into that trust as beneficiaries, and he set it up so that the military, real-time military, is the protector of that trust, and the trust cannot fail for lack of a trustee, which brings me to today. And that's why the military was the only way and is the only way. That's why our military is under a soft martial law right now, protecting the states and doing what they need to do. Because that's why they never thought this whole setup, which we're going to get into, is that disgusting Hillary Clinton, they thought she'd never lose in 2016. And that's why we're taking back our country. So I'm going to try to sum this up. We never really had, if we're talking about votes, we never had a vote because our republic was actually stolen from us in 1871. And it goes all the way back. So we've actually been participating in an illusion of freedom, an illusion of a vote, an illusion of a legal system of law and order, an illusion of courts, and an illusion of authority. And as a mankind, whether it's to Jesus or God or Buddha, that's what we do as humans. We want to trust something bigger than us and give over our authority. No longer. When you understand that these people are licensed, bonded, and insured, which means they have an oath and off of office. They have a bond which is to the people, and that they're going to perform their duties and responsibilities. They're also insured, meaning they have a liability policy. And these people are actually practicing medicine without a license. So you have to put the system to the test. So we're going to move into what happened back in 1871. The thing about corporations is that if you create a corporation, you control the bylaws of the corporation. We have not held anybody accountable. We don't have a single common law court in our country. They've been removed because we were invaded in 1871. The second type of law is trust law. It's the law of commerce. And in trust law, you're operating in private. and all of the Rothschilds and all of their lineage and all of their incestuous having babies with each other so that they could take over world order. Sick people, my friends. The common law was kept from us. The trust law had been kept from us. And thirdly, you have the maritime, which is water. Trump always says, watch the water. So maritime, the corporate law, the political law, those are all the same category, and they are laws of corporations. So the thing about corporations then is that if you create the corporation, you control the bylaws of that corporation. So if I want to contract someone, a corporation can only do business with another corporation when it comes to business and contract law, which means that they had to turn us into corporations. Okay. They're a corporation. They turn us into a corporation so that they can do business in order to contract with us within these courts. Okay. So let's talk 1871. Let's go all the way back, because when I found out this information through 2 years of researching and listening to people in Telegram and Twitter spaces and reading and going back to the executive orders, I realized, wow, this is it. This is the key. So what happened is they took over our country in 1871. So to give some basic history, the US is really one of the only countries that ever had freedom. And we had that in 1817 when we signed the Declaration of Independence. Our forefathers understood the enemy. They understood Great Britain. They were at war, and we really only had freedom for maybe around 7 years before we entered into this new contract agreement with Great Britain and France. And we all agreed. And at the time, Great Britain agreed to leave us alone. And there's a lot more to that story. I'm not going to get into that, but let's go back those 70 years. The debt was due. And when the debt was due, all hell broke loose. What happened is you basically had a republic at the national level and the union, if you will. Remember James J. Hill? I live in Minnesota. He's one of the ones that started the unions. And the only reason that people joined a union, each state joined the union, was to protect against, at that time, foreign invasion. And at that time, the republic, when they first set it up in 1776, it was structured as a trust. And at the time, the states had formed as a union. They had also formed their own sovereign nations. There were 35 states that had formed their own republics. So think Texas. Texas wanted their own republic, different from Delaware or Florida. And they had different sets of bylaws. So the way that they had originally structured their sovereign nations, and there were 35 established in 1871, that there was an executor. So the executor in every trust and the trustee as a beneficiary had 3 parties in a trust. And at that time, the executor was really the person who was carrying the trust, was set up as the governor, but he's an elected or a public servant. And then the servants were the trustees. So the public servants were actually considered servants, and they were considered noble servants to the people because we, the people, were beneficiaries of that trust. And the trust cannot fail for the lack of the trustee. I already stated that. So it really got out of line when people created government. Therefore, the people control government. Therefore, we, you, the people, move people out if they're not operating within the rules and the guidelines of the trust. So the rules and the guidelines of the trust are called a trustee, and they called this trust indenture or constitution. So every state had its own constitution. But there was also a constitution at the national level or the union level. So remember, the reason they structured this was a way to have autonomy from the union. They wanted to be able to operate autonomously in the event that there was ever a domestic invasion or foreign invasion or government overreach. Think about that for a second and where we're at right now. So this was actually a very smart system that our lovely forefathers set up. They had peace officers. They were operating under common law, which is a trial by jury. They were operating with true justice, a true vote. I mean, can you feel the patriotic essence from that? And can you feel the differentiation of the frequency we are in now? In fact, when you had a true vote and you owned land, you were considered an elector. And because you had vested interest in your land, you actually got 4 votes to 1 of any of those people passing by or anyone that wanted to vote because they considered themselves residents of the state. So it was a very smart system. It worked very well until 1871. And there were many, many things that led up to this. But just like all wars, they are funded by the people at the top, and they are funded by bankers, and they are funded by banks. And that's the deep state, my friends. That's what we call the deep state. I've got many other words for them, but let's just call them that for now. And they like to fund both sides of every war. And so what has happened was that they created actually the Civil War. They put men in suits and created a war and basically was, I mean, you call it what you want, but it's unjust. They fabricated the Civil War, my friends. They fabricated racism. And the bankers were essentially starting to take over. And so what happened was everyone in the Senate, the House, and the Senate, and all the positions and trustees of these trusts, they vacated their office because they had enough. They got bullied out of their office. And when they came back, well, what do you know? Just like when Jekyll and Hyde took over the Fed and started printing money out of thin air for their own pockets, these governors supposedly came back. They came back as corporations. When they came back as a corporation, it was completely different structure. Now it was a corporation. And they tied up and locked up all the corporation into a trust. So now you have an executor, which is basically the elite controlling the trust, the deep state. You got paid actors who are calling themselves governors, lieutenant governors, secretary of states, treasurers, House, Senate. They're not. They are simply a corporate officer working for a corporation where they make up their own damn bylaws. They make this shit up. They make up their own rules. So every bill you've ever seen that's ever passed is a corporate bill. Now, I'm not saying that these people are all bad people. Who here? I can raise my hand. I used to write for PACs, which were a group that supported political campaigns. I have been invested in this process. And these beautiful souls that want to make a change in their state go and run, and they get duped into the system, they get programmed, and they become a part of the corporation. So I'm not pulling fault at innocent souls. I'm pulling fault at the darkness that has covered our entire nation for far too long. And graciously, I'm sorry to tell you, my friends, but these guys are gone. So let's finish up the story. It's ridiculous. So they call themselves lawmakers. They act like they care about you. They act like you're free. And we understand that we have not been free. So just as Governor DeSantimonious, right? He's a paid actor. You can literally go and look at the individual that has been playing Joe Biden. Please understand, these are not real people for your invested interest. They're puppets for the deep state on paper, and they've signed away their soul lawfully, legally, and this is how they usurped our whole country. And they did it in a legal way. Now you can think of legal action as fiction, lawful as true. Legal as fiction, lawful as true. And legal means de facto. It means false. It means made up. It means you choose to contract with them or not. And they actually don't have any jurisdiction over you, and you don't have any jurisdiction over them. It goes both ways. So it's all about, will you agree to contract with us? Now we're getting into consent. So this mafia, essentially the beneficiaries of all things, is the trust. In 1871, what they did is they told the people, hey, you need to revise our Constitution because the Constitution is no longer good. They call it a Constitution. It's their own kind of Constitution. It is not our Constitution. It is bylaws. Now, when you name a thing the same thing, people think it's the same. And if you look at it, it's in all caps. So anytime that you see a form or agreement, any kind of court document or any kind of oath of office, anytime you see all caps, that's representing the corporation. It's a syntax or a symbolic text. So anytime you look at a court document, I want you to look at that. If you take a marker, you just mark it all out. And then when you look at the document again, you'll know which parts are legal, fiction, and when I say legal fiction, I mean it's corporation. And that sets yourself up, and you can kind of see that there's no derived authority over you whatsoever. But look on your birth certificate. They signed you over. They may act like they're authority figures, but they're not. So they brought in this policy to enforce the police precincts. They brought in the policy enforcers, the fake rules, the policemen. There's over 685 courts in the United States, and they're all corporations, run by corporations. They are not courts. They are not for we, the people, and we are no longer beneficiaries of this trust, which means we don't have to vote. It means we also don't have a vote. It's a contrived vote. We are no longer beneficiaries of this system. So what we're learning here is the difference between status, standing, and character. We're operating under a legal fiction. That's what they call straw man. They're contracting with you as a corporation. So all these people are declaring themselves as a living being, a living soul. You've been blinded and paid off to enforce things and to collect things. But here's the thing. There are no more steps in this game. Jubilee is on our doorstep. But if we don't understand what was set up, that you had a government, which is all corporations. So the city, the country, the counties, the states, they're all corporations, the corporation at the national level, and the courts, and every court is a corporation drawing money out of your pocketbook. They're operating a commerce behind the scenes every time you interact with them, and they're invading on our land. Our country has been completely invaded by foreign corporations. These are all corporations of the British. So the British, going back to the beginning, have invaded us again, but lawfully and legally through foreign corporations. And because they were operating under the guise of what we thought was our freedom, was the illusion of the freedom and the illusion of this law and order, we were hypnotized, which goes back to unhypnotized, waking up to the truth. You can call it 3D to 5D. I don't care what you call it. We're waking up to this layer of fuzzy friction that has been dormant over our nation and our globe for so long of the dark energy. And it's lifting. So, like I noted, we were invaded in 1871. We now understand the military was the only way, and Donald Trump was able to lawfully and legally operate our US military to take back the world. The world. Because our military was the military arm of the cabal. They were three arms in the cabal. The United States military was one of them. The financial arm was another. And Trump had to do it. He went to every single country. They capitulated. And he dropped the evidence on them. And so if they've capitulated, and we understand that Trump has already taken back our republic, because he has, he is currently the 19th president of the republic. Biden is an actor, currently the president that falls asleep at every damn thing that he goes to. I do not understand why they couldn't get a better actor for him, but apparently it's true to his character. He's a phony. He's a fake. So what you're watching right now is a president of a corporation has absolutely no jurisdiction over you. And frankly, we don't have a whole lot of jurisdiction over them because they are a corporation. So what needs to happen, and is happening right now, is that everyone needs to wake up. We need to redirect all of our attention, our love, and our energy to the solution. This has been dissolved. The republic is here. And so now it is who's going to stand up and enter into these positions where we start operating as a wholesome nation and globe in lockstep. We are abolishing what was the government, what was the fake contract, what was the fake constitution. And now we're understanding that in 2020, Trump made the declaration underneath Mount Rushmore on July 4th. Makes me want to tear up. And he said, I am going to sign a very special document. Trump had to set this up in order to take us back to the republic. He's already done it. And we are so grateful as well for our forefathers. And so a lot has happened behind the scenes. Thousands of children have been saved of these underground tunnels. They have received care from different frequency beds that we've learned about to help them heal, which is Tesla energy, another energy that they have hidden from us. We are now moving into a digital asset, and we're reclaiming. Texas is already backed by gold. Trump did what he needed to do. We're currently looking at the Wizard of Oz, and we're about to pull back the curtain fully. And these people never had jurisdiction over you. That's what I want you to understand. This is a contract that you have with yourself, and that you have to prove to yourself by understanding, one, knowledge is key. Number two, integrating it is key. And number three, living out the truth is the next phase of the game and how you're going to play in that game. So at this point, they've docked their ship. They forced us into maritime law. They forced us into contracting with them. They bullied us for too long. They stole our children. They've made us sign birth certificates over to the state. They've claimed dead on arrival. That's it. Our birth certificate was them claiming that we were dead on arrival. They put it into probate because we didn't claim it. We never registered them properly. So you've been being sold as a commodity on the stock market, which means you've been trafficked since the day you were born. Ever since you were born, you were trafficked, and you cannot hold the body as a surety for a debt that the body does not owe. So when you understand that you're being traded on the market, this is why we have to deplete a very, very dark system to the ground, burning it all down. Truth reveals itself. All my love, all my light, and we'll talk to you soon.